This is the ORA Funky Cat, and it has a camera system that can do facial recognition and scan the car to see if you've left any precious cargo behind. Like a baby. All right? See if it works. Forgot my baby. Oh. Yes, I appreciate you might never have heard of this brand, neither had I until about a year ago. Guess what? On the surface, this is looking like a charming and practical alternative to the usual electric car suspects. ORA is a car brand owned by Chinese supercorp Great Wall Motors. In 2021, they sold over 1.2 million cars, about 1 million more than Mini. They operate in 60 countries and have a 50-50 joint venture with BMW that will see intense collaboration between the two. This car is also known as the ORA Good Cat in China and had earlier been known as just the ORA Cat here in the UK, but the final name for this market is the ORA Funky Cat. The name is definitely funky, isn't it? Certainly more memorable than a lot of this car's rivals, ID3, Corsa E, E208. When you hear the name Funky Cat, that's not a name you're going to forget in a hurry. In terms of design, it's a bit of a mashup of lots of different cars in one. It's got the Mini-inspired headlights, which do a really funky shutdown or startup sequence when you press the button on the fob. The rest of it is quite VW Beetle inspired, perhaps even a touch of Porsche Cayman. Sorry Cayman fanboys, but that's what I'm seeing. And this badge is really, really interesting as well. It stands out. When you see that, you think, what is that car? Another bit of design flair that I like is this hexagonal detailing down here just below the front headlights. It's interesting. Right, let's go around the side because that's quite interesting as well. The first thing you notice in this quarter panel here is the charge port. And by the way, that can charge at 6 kilowatts, 11 kilowatts AC, and also 65 kilowatts DC. We'll talk a bit more about charge speeds later on. You got 18-inch alloys as standard, no options there. Don't like the design of the wheels, but if you were able to get some wheels on the aftermarket, I reckon this car would look really, really fascinating because you got this muscular front wing which dips down. This lovely little line here dips down by the doors and then kicks up again at the rear. Yeah. It's funky. As for colours, you have a choice of 5. Nebula Green and Starry Black, both with black interiors. Mars Red with a starry black roof and red and beige interior. And Aurora Green with a moonlight white roof and green and beige interior. All of them are roughly the same price and level of funkiness. Let's take a look at the back. This might be my favourite angle of the car. My cameraman, my child, disagrees somewhat, but I think it's very interesting. You've got this huge rear spoiler, which almost looks like a backwards baseball cap. No light clusters where you'd expect them. Instead, the lights, they're all over the place. So you got indicators down by the bottom, a high level brake light at the top, and this LED high level brake light in the middle, which animates when you lock and unlock the car. You've also got huge ORA lettering smack bang in the middle, Funky Cat written on the left-hand side, and GWM, Great Wall Motors, on the right. And again, that's sure to confuse anyone that looks at this car because they're going to wonder what on earth it is. Also like this F1-inspired fog light, very cool. As for the boot, well, it's not massive, just 228 litres, so only slightly bigger than a Mini Electric. There is some underfloor storage for cables and a dedicated cable bag, but the boot lip is quite high, so loading large objects might be tricky, even if the rear seats do fold flat. Let me show you the back of the Funky Cat. It's pretty basic, good, but basic. What I really like is that front seat's adjusted for my driving position, and yet I've got loads of legroom here and also decent headroom. They've got this little cutout section in the roof to hollow it out to provide decent headroom. So space is actually not too bad. You got 2 ISOFIX points for your child car seats, an armrest in the center with 2 cup holders, and the other basics you'd expect from a family car, including some storage in there for your gadgets, but only a single USB port, so you're gonna have to fight over that, and there are no rear vents. All of it has to come from the front, which does seem a little bit stingy. Now, we're in the front of the Funky Cat, and I've got to say, I'm really pleasantly surprised by the interior in this car. It's actually wowed me, I would say. Very, very impressed. So if you go for the red car, you get the red interior. Again, no options. So if you don't like red interiors, you're out of luck. But actually, it's really, really nice. The leather, I don't think it's real, but it does feel actually decent quality. And the dashboard isn't real Alcantara or suede, but again, it feels and looks actually very, very good, including some decent stitching along the dash and decent stitching in the door cards as well. They've clearly been inspired by Mini in a lot of ways. So these buttons and switches on the center console look like they've been lifted straight out of a Mini, but they do look good and they feel good as well. The actual movements for these is really, really sweet. So they haven't just nicked it with a bad copy. The copy is really, really nice. The steering wheel is very good as well. So 2-spoke design. These infotainment displays, 10-inch screen on the left, 10-inch screen for the driver, look fabulous as well. The resolution is really, really high. On some of these cars, the resolution is really low and it looks a bit naff. But in this case, I like it a lot. In terms of storage, I've just discovered it's got the slowest glove box in the world. I'll open that and we can talk amongst ourselves while that opens. You've got 2 cup holders down here, a bit of storage in front of that, 2 USB ports, a 12-volt port for your electricity. It's still opening. Plus wireless charging for a mobile phone and a fairly decent sized center console as well. Still going, so I'll talk about the vents. These are really nice as well. Everything in this car looks really sweet. It's finished now. Let's go for a drive. Before I tell you what the ORA Funky Cat is like to drive, let me remind you of the price. This car will cost £32,000, and that's come as a little bit of a shock to me because about 6 months ago there was a lot of word on the internet that it might cost about £22,000. But that's all out the window now. A lot of things have happened in the world and ORA have decided that the Funky Cat will cost as much, if not more, than pretty much all of the rivals that it goes up against. And that means this car had better be pretty damn funky. First impressions, really good. When you get in, it's obviously very quiet, very refined. The seats are nice and comfortable, and the whole driving experience from starting it up to pulling away is super simple. There's no button to press. You twist the knob in the center console, put it to D, accelerate, and off you pop. It's nice and smooth and feels high quality. I can imagine that there aren't going to be many people who jump into one of these and have buyer's remorse. Obviously, it's not perfect. There are a couple of things to have a moan about, one of which is the indicator stalk. It's of the digital variety, which means that there isn't a firm click when you indicate left or right. So if I press the indicator left now, it pops back up to the center, and to cancel it, you need to give it a half press up again to cancel. It worked that time, bizarrely, but there are times when you get in a weird kind of feedback loop, half pressing up and down, and it doesn't ever seem to want to cancel. Look at that, look, I'm pressing down, pressing up, and it's just indicating left and right. That gets infuriating to the point where you might not always want to bother indicating. They should fix that. Something else to note is the responsiveness of the accelerator. When you floor it, it takes about a second before it gets up and goes, which isn't the end of the world, but in electric cars, you're used to pretty much instantaneous response. And in the Funky Cat, yeah, it's not quite as instantaneous as you might expect. Not the end of the world, but something to note. In terms of power, the Funky Cat is actually pretty decent. It's got a 171 horsepower electric motor driving the front wheels, which is good for 0 to 62 in 8.3 seconds and flat out 99 miles an hour. So performance isn't bad at all. It has an eco mode, interestingly, which limits the top speed to around 50 miles an hour, and it also has some pretty decent brakes. Now, here's the thing, this car comes with disc brakes all around. Not every electric car in its class can say the same thing. I'm looking at you, Volkswagen. A lot of equivalent cars use drum brakes, so you can expect the Funky Cat to offer superior braking performance, and it also has a one-pedal driving mode. If I go into vehicle settings and then scroll down to single pedal mode and select that, effectively it allows you to drive just using the accelerator, floor it to go forward and lift off to brake. What I've found though is that it's not very aggressive with its stopping power when you lift off. It takes about at least 100, 120 yards before it stops, which means it's perhaps not as useful when driving around town with a single pedal. I'll tell you what is useful when you're driving around town. Let me just cut into this little housing estate and show you something. If I indicate, look at the screen down here. It shows you how close my wheels are to the curb so that I'm less likely to curb my alloy wheels. That's a really nice touch. And if I go down into this little cul-de-sac, I'll show you this 3D bird's eye view feature, which allows you to see the car in context with your environment. Look at that. So it's really, really simple to maneuver. And if I pop it into reverse and then get out of here, you also get this really useful 3D representation of the car, which again makes it nice and simple to see the Funky Cat in its surroundings and maneuver without damaging the thing. That's nice.
The battery pack, which isn't overly large at 48 kilowatt hours, provides a range of 193 miles. The entry-level VW ID3 and Peugeot E208 both have slightly smaller packs with slightly better range. It can charge overnight at home from 5 to 80% in 5.5 hours, or rapid charge at 65 kilowatts in 42 minutes.
I just want to show you some of the technology in the Funky Cat now, because it's brand new and you're probably not very familiar with it. It has good and bad, mostly good, I'd say. First of all, it looks fantastic, but it's also got some very clever online integrated features. For example, it's got Deezer and Spotify alongside your normal local radio or Bluetooth or USB music. It's also got a Reuters app for some reason. So there's a SIM card in here with a Reuters app that lets you actually watch news, presumably only when you're parked up, or read the news whenever you like to get your fix of Reuters information. Then remember at the start of the film when I showed you the facial recognition camera? Well, that not only monitors the car for your children and your animals that you've abandoned accidentally inside the car, it will also do some other really clever functionality. So first of all, it's got child mode, or kids mode rather. So you press that and it winds up all the windows and starts playing a variety of music you can choose from, including Music Box, Forest, Bonfire, Ocean, or Rainy Day to encourage your children to go to sleep. It's also got distraction monitoring. So if I'm driving along and this camera sees me yawn, it'll encourage me to pull over to make sure that I don't have a nasty accident. Or it will also look out for other potentially dangerous behavior, i.e. taking your eyes off the road and looking over at your passenger behind you, for example. It's not all perfect though. This car does the usual annoying thing of not having a dedicated physical control for your heating and air conditioning. So what you've got to do is press the AC on button, then it brings it up on screen, and then you can adjust the fan speed via some slightly fiddly icons on the display. But here's what's really, really frustrating. It doesn't matter whether you set this car to as high a temperature as you like or a coldest temperature as you like, it won't actually heat the car. You have to press this icon up here, that sun icon, before it actually turns the heat on, which is just, well, it's confusing at best, frustrating at worst. There's another cool bit of technology that I want to show you, and it is the Funky Cat's voice recognition system. Check this out. Hello, Aura.
What's up?
Wind down the driver's window.
Opening.
How cool is that? Hello, Aura. Wind up the driver's window.
All right. Closed.
That is really, really cool. And if you recognize the voice, that's the same voice they use in BMW's voice recognition systems. I guess there's a bit of a deep partnership going on between those two. What's quite good is that there's a lot of real useful granularity to the voice recognition system. So you can ask for all sorts of things like the weather in Birmingham, or to zoom in on the sat-nav, or to adjust the volume. How safe is the Funky Cat? That's a very good question. Guess what? It's actually achieved a 5-star Euro NCAP rating, which is really impressive for a new brand. And part of the reason for its success in that area is that it has really advanced ADAS systems, all the driver assistance systems that you'd expect in a modern car. this thing has it. So it's got forward collision avoidance, it's got lane keep assist, it'll automatically steer out of the way to avoid obstacles in front of you, it'll brake if there's a human standing in the road. It does all of that stuff surprisingly well. I appreciate it, but at times it can feel as if some of these safety systems are a little bit overzealous. You often get warnings popping up on the driver display and a little tug of the steering wheel as it tries to correct itself because it thinks you're about to have an accident, which does get a little bit frustrating sometimes, but you can turn that off. Sadly, whenever you go to turn the car on again, it resets to being activated, which means that you've got to turn it off every single time you drive. But I'm happy that the systems are there because it does make the Funky Cat a safer car.
As for peace of mind, the Funky Cat comes with a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty and an 8-year 100,000 mile warranty for the battery and powertrain. You also get 5 years or 60,000 miles for the paint and 12 years of anti-corrosion warranty. Who can fix the car if anything goes wrong? Well, ORA have a growing number of service centres and dealerships across the UK, but do your own research as to where these are located in relation to you.
So what do I think of the ORA Funky Cat? It's a brand new addition to the market. Is it good enough to topple the incumbents in this particular segment? Well, at first when I jumped in, I had my doubts, to be honest with you, but within a few minutes, it became pretty clear that this is a very, very attractive proposition. It's got a great amount of technology and equipment in it. It looks the part, very charming, and it also drives well. This is a brilliant little electric family car that will easily take it to the likes of the Vauxhall Corsa E, VW ID3, or any of those cars that are established on the market already. Okay, you might never have heard of Great Wall Motors, and you might never have heard of the ORA Funky Cat, but believe me, you're going to be hearing a lot more about this thing in the future. Go check it out.